screens become the everything. And if there's not that, there's no motivation to do anything.
Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We have a treat for you today. My amazing client, Jessica, she emailed me looking for the recording of a coaching call we did. She wanted to share it with some friends. And she thought it was on my public podcast feed. And he said, oh, it's on the private podcast feed inside of League. We had done a coaching call, I think it was last summer. There were some big breakthroughs that she had. In fact, I'm going to share a replay of an episode that I've already aired on the podcast probably tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that, where Jessica and I talked about the progress that had been made from this call you're about to hear. And she talked about how things had changed and how it had worked. It's so cool. But I aired that episode without airing the coaching call because I just didn't even think about asking her if she would be okay putting it on the podcast. And when she responded back to me, when I asked her if she would be cool with me putting it on the podcast with, yes, absolutely, you have my full permission. I did a Toyota jump. I celebrated. Yes, this is going to be so fun for people to get a glimpse into how we take these principles from theory and put them into real life. Every call I do is different because every scenario is slightly different. And what's needed in one home might be totally different than another home. There is a common through line, and that is always relationships, nervous system safety, attachment. Those are constant. However, the application as far as what to do specifically is very unique to every situation. So you're going to see what we did with her and her family based on what was going on for her and her kids. And it's awesome because this is something that comes up all of the time. How do I set a limit? How do I get my kids to do things? And it's three-pronged. The first strategy that I teach is understand your own behavior so you can leave room for your kids' behavior, meaning see what crazy thoughts you have inside of your head so that you can calm your nervous system down and be regulated. Keep that prefrontal cortex on so you can handle situations that previously triggered you with a calm confidence so that you can be firm and compassionate. So that is strategy one. And she had done a lot of work on this already. So she was pretty clear and had a really nice awareness around her thoughts. Then strategy two is consistently connect. So we are connecting intentionally with, I call it high speed fiber connection. I'm using the internet analogy here. This undivided attention and connection that we have typically in a negative sense when our kids have off track behavior. We put the phone down. We walk into the other room. We are 100% energetically there. And that's high-speed connection. It's on the negative side of the spectrum, but it's still a high-speed connection. And we want to transfer that intentionality, that focus into the positive side of the spectrum and consistently connect with our kids in a way that creates a relationship of trust and love and acceptance that is undeniable for our kids. And we're going to be checking in on that because just because we feel that we're showing up in this really juicy, wonderful way, what really matters is, does my kid feel that way? And there's some different ways we look at that and evaluate that. So that's the second strategy. And then the third one is, how do we respond in a connected way? Or I call it choose closeness. We choose to stay close when normally our nervous system would say, flee, or give them a consequence, or fix this behavior. And instead we say, hey, I am capable of staying close and connected and regulated, and I can set a limit for my kids as needed. It doesn't have to be fueled by punishments. It doesn't have to be fueled by threats. It's fueled by connection. And all three of these strategies are absolutely essential when it comes to creating a connective approach to parenting, specifically a Connect Method parenting approach. And so you're going to see glimpses of that in this coaching call, which is so great that you get to get an idea of what this is like and how this works. Because the transference from theory to application is typically where the disconnect happens, where things fall apart. That's why I started League. where we implement connect method parenting. When people come in and work with me, what I want their brain to see is that it is possible. This will work in their situation. This will help. So this is the work that you're going to see in this coaching call that you're going to get to listen in on. This is the work I do as I help people implement connect method parenting, whether they work with me one-on-one or inside of my group called League. So, and in 1 month from now, about a month from now, is when the next group is being led into League. So keep your ears open if you're ready to implement connect method parenting. All right. So let's get into the call. Here we go. All right. So let me know what you want to start with, Jessica.
Okay. All right. Well, I am fairly new to your program and loving it. Actually, I've been doing this coaching work for years for myself. And I feel like over the last year in particular, I've had amazing leaps and bounds in my own connection with my children and growing
Beautiful.
that connection. I know it's been amazing, particularly one daughter. Like, I feel like it was so ugly to like uncover that I was perpetuating some like body shame that I have experienced and did experience as a kid and was doing it to her, and like just like uncovering all the ugly and seeing all the ugly and then really starting to heal. That has been a beautiful journey.
Great.
So here's where I'm at. I feel like I'm at an amazing level of awareness of my thoughts, of my desire for control, like all the time. I can recognize that, and I'm not shaming that. I just recognize like, oh, this is me wanting that child to do this thing. And they say why. And I can recognize that the root is like, well, because I said so. And I want that to be a thing. So I've been really, the thing that really pulled me in recently was one of your introductory videos that talked about not motivating your children by either rewards or consequences.
Yes.
That blew me away. Like, I'd been doing a lot of connectivity work. People would have things like, okay, you get your room clean, we're doing this thing. So I fully believe it. Like, it just so resonated as like the next right thing in my evolution as a parent. But now I'm kind of stuck because here's where we are. Like, even today we're doing, like, it's summer. So we have our morning chore time. Like, we do breakfast. And today was actually even a particularly fun day. My older 3 kids were up early. I was like, hey, let's go to the park. So we went to the park at 6 and then we got breakfast. We had a great fun time. We got back. Now it's chore time. And I have one kid this is really working for him. Like, I feel like the connection has just really fed into him, but his natural instinct is to be a get-doner of things. And so he just slams them out. And I have a couple kids that I love and I resonate with so much because I tend towards the distractibility. And so I recognize that they will start a thing and then they wander off and then they don't. What's happening, and here's where it's kind of the linchpin for me, is they just don't do it. Like, and they don't do it at all. And then they start to say things like, well, I don't care, because they get afternoon electronics time. You get an hour of personal screen time. I mean, the prerequisites are, and I feel like that's still in the realm of boundary, not consequence, right? You do your stuff. You get
there's
your
order and structure. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
But then they're like, well, I don't really care, or I don't really need screen time. And then the collateral damage is the state of my house. And they don't care. And I'm trying to honor that and not be like, okay, well, like, add a new thing, right? Because that moves into like sort of realm of consequences or rewards. Then I'm kind of in this stuck place where, and so then even just now, like, my older son has earned his time. So he's playing Zelda and the younger girls are just crowding around watching him. And so I can say, you guys haven't done your stuff, but then I'm in this rut. And I feel like I'm in this rut a lot where it's like, I'm not going to physically remove them or force them or say, nope, you can't. Like, I could pull them away. I mean, I'm not going to physically pull them away, but I can say, okay, you guys are not allowed to watch if you haven't done your screen time. Well, your chores, they just stay there. Okay. Right. And so then that's the point at which I recognize, and I don't always get to a heated level. Sometimes it moves. I would say I'm actually most of the time not heated. I most of the time just kind of walk away to think about it for myself. Like, why am I doing this? Well, So then I'm there, but then there's not the follow through that's happening for them, which I also question, like, is that important? Do there need to be consequences? So I'm like in this metaphysical questioning space, but I feel like it's not serving the house or my kids really in the long run, because it's sort of just their distractibility. And then they do that. Well, I don't even care about screen time. I don't care about this. So they'll just kind of dink around doing nothing all day. And
what are they allowed to do if they don't? What's the order of events? If they don't do the You go to the park, you have fun, time to come home, do chores. They don't do chores. What are their options?
They're pretty self-entertaining. Like they'll read. My
Okay.
kids will read all day long. They would read
Okay.
day in and day. I used to get grounded as a kid from books. That was one of my consequences. Like
Yeah.
I sometimes wish that we did that, but my husband's like, no, no, they're reading. Like they have no problem reading. They could read a
Love
novel a
it.
day. So they'll just read,
Okay.
or they'll do Legos, or they'll self-entertain. And part of it's like, okay, well, here we are. I don't even know what to do that. I guess I'm creating a problem out of it. And
Yeah. How do
so
you
I have
think you're
questions.
contributing to it, to the
Yeah,
situation?
I have questioned that. I mean, I do question that. There's a couple factors that come up for me. I definitely feel like the state of my house is something that I'm emotionally connected to, and I've done a
Yeah.
lot of work to disconnect myself, and like my house is 50-50. Like, so I feel
Okay.
like in that way it really has come to be
That's beautiful.
representative of my brain. Like half the time it's a
Okay.
freaking mess, the other half the time it's clean. And so I feel like I've done a little bit of that disconnecting work. The other side of that coin is I am highly distractible, and I will go days without doing dishes or things that I know I should be
Okay.
doing. So I do have that kind of like underneath belief sometimes when I'm on a bad day that I have ruined my kids because of my behavior towards the house,
Mm,
or just my modeling isn't super great. And so that's also probably why I then just kind of let it go. Like, well, it's going to be messy today, and they're just going to self entertain. But then what also happens too that I worry about is screens become the everything. Like, and if there's not that, there's no motivation to do anything. Do you know? Like on days where it's like, well, let's
mm,
do an analog day today. We'll just do family stuff. Then even my one helper who will get his stuff done, bam, bam, bam,
yeah.
he's
No.
out. Everybody's out. Like we don't do
Inter-
jobs to just do jobs. Like there's no, and I recognize, right? Like basic nature and self-interest is
Right. They don't
we
care.
don't just like say, hey mom, yes, I'd love to mop the floor.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds so amazing. Thank you for giving
Yeah.
me the opportunity.
Yeah. So I'm kind of in that
Yeah.
space where like I have relaxed my like control grip. I'm really questioning my motivations, and I'm really working on building the connection. Like all those things I just feel really good about.
So
But
good. Just
when it
diving
comes,
another layer.
yeah, I almost need just like pragmatics, like a system, like a
Hmm.
form or a system that becomes, because yeah, even just now, like literally 10 minutes before getting on the call, my daughter's just sitting on the couch looking at family photo books. And I was like, so how's it going, babe? Like with your chores? And I brought up, she's like, I just don't feel like it's not really that messy. And I said, well, there's a checklist, remember? So I know it doesn't look messy. So you just go through one at a time, pick the first one, go look at it. And she's like, oh, mom. I was just like, and I have a lot of compassion for that. But at the same time,
Yeah.
and I'd been listening to your videos on like binge watch. So I was like, well, we have these fun activities planned this afternoon as a family. We're going to go play Super Mario World, and then we're going to go swimming. And I know you're really excited about both of those. And I'm trying not to make this a reward.
Yeah. And it's also a little tricky. That kind of stuff can be tricky because if it's a family activity, do they have to earn it? If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today.
Yes, so tricky. And then that has come back to bite me in the butt before, for
Yeah,
sure.
that can
Like
be really tricky.
it's the worst. And so yeah, on Saturday it was family swim time, and my daughter had just avoided the dishes all afternoon. And I was like, "Okay, we just got to load it." I mean, she's like, "Fine, I'm not swimming then. I don't even care." Right? Like that's where, and she's only 10, but you can see how they then they'd rather cut off their limb than be chained to that thing. And so it can then,
Yeah.
it has such a backlash that I really, really don't want. So yeah, this is
Yeah,
where I'm kind of stuck.
this is good. No, I have a few more questions, but this is good to just see all the tangents. before we jump to something else. I do like to differentiate. This is a family activity that everybody gets to do regardless. No earning, nothing has to be done, which you might be very careful to do those if you are having issues like this, because you just don't want someone to feel like they have to earn quality time with the family. So
yeah.
we can
And
kind
I've
of
seen
put that
that.
on it. Yeah, we can put that on a shelf and come back to that. But that's just something I would,
No,
that's
I really
different. That's
appreciate
different
that.
than saying, hey, after you do the chores, you get to play Zelda. That's a different thing than we're going to go do a family swim day this afternoon. So two different things. Tell me when your house is messy, what are your thoughts? What's your story about yourself? What's your story about your kids?
Yeah, when my house is messy, I feel like I've done a lot of work, and my place that I'm at is like, okay, well, here's where we are today.
Yeah,
I feel
where are
like
you
I'm
right
like
now?
creative. No, that's where I am. Like that's what I think. I'll think, okay, here's where we are today. Like I'm a
Oh, that's
creative
your thought.
genius.
Okay,
That's my
here's
thought.
where
Like
we
I'll
are
go in
today.
big on projects and then I'll leave really big messes and then I'll do a big cleanup. And so I kind of just see that as sort of my style of movement through life in general. So it's like, okay, well, here's where we are today. We're in a mess today. I don't like that feeling, like it's uncomfortable. Like I think, oh, okay. And sometimes I'll get curious, or I wonder when it's going to be the next cleanup. When I'm in a bad space, I'll go, gosh, why am I this way? Like, why can I be the person that always has it clean? And that's
Why
my
do you
default.
want to always have it clean? Where do you think
Yeah.
that comes from? I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
good or bad either way. I'm just curious because of how you said it. Why am I
Yeah.
not the person that always has it clean?
Yeah. That's so interesting.
As
We
you
just
just
did
described, you're not that kind of person.
we just did a family trip up to visit various, and we stayed at different family houses, like all through the way. And there were just a couple places that were so darling and so tidy. And I couldn't help but like, I've done a lot to talk through that, but the comparison just came up like, oh
Yeah.
man, there are people that live this way, that it's clean. Like, this is, I don't know. It was hard seeing it in real time
Yeah.
because for the most part, I give a lot of grace to myself and all the other moms out there. Like, okay, we're doing the best we can. Some people, it's a high priority and they're really good at that. And other people are just have different priorities. And I've categorized myself as someone who has a different priority. But yeah, it was a little bit, yeah, I could feel that one for sure. Like in my body, like, oh,
What did you feel? And where
I
was it?
felt, oh,
You're
it's,
tapping your chest. So is it like right
yeah,
here?
it's my chest and kind of my gut, like my just sort of this like, I don't know if I would go so far as to call it just envy, but kind of envy. It was, yeah, I think it was envy
Why envy, do you think?
because their houses were beautiful or it's the
Based on the
same envy.
cleanliness,
Yeah.
purely you're making that
Cleanliness,
decision, or is it cleanliness? Is it
cleanliness and
decoration?
cleanliness and yeah, decoration, like ability to take like rubble and junk, like things that get piled on here, and they turned it into like, oh, like those badges that kids earn at state parks that I just threw them all away. Like we're in this cute decorative jar on the bookshelf. Like, what? They're so clever and cute and clean. But
And
yes.
clean.
But
So
yeah,
much judgment.
yeah, totally. There was. Oh, yeah, I did come home with a lot of suitcases and dirty laundry and dirty thoughts.
The dirty stuff all just came back
It's
with
just
you.
like,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm open to being wrong. But what I'm seeing is this theme of something about I'm proving my worthiness or my goodness if my house is clean. And I'm trying to get my kids to collaborate with me on this agenda I have. I'm trying to get myself. So I'm not even totally there all the time because I do these big messes and then these big cleanups. And that doesn't really fit the profile that I think would be
yeah,
better.
I definitely privilege consistency over creativity. Like I love that I have a son who's like all about consistency, and at different points in my life have worried that I'm ruining him by my ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah. What's more natural to you if you
Definitely
think you're honoring yourself? Yeah.
creativity. Yeah. And when I'm in a good place, I am honoring that. Like I'm like, okay, here's where we are. We're in the mess phase. And that's okay, right? Like that's okay.
Yeah. And then when you're not, how often are you in a good place with it versus not in a good place with it, do you think?
I would say it's
Sounds like it's
pretty
more
high.
than,
It's
yeah.
70-30 at least. Yeah. It does
Okay.
come up more when my husband like will come through. It's been like a week and he's like, I think all the dishes in the kitchen are dirty. Like, oh yeah, I think you're right. But like even then, I'm grateful he's not super judgment. Like every once in a while it flares, but he's very understanding. And I like his style. He really doesn't question me about it, or like I think he's
Okay.
also come to recognize that that's my style, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
And
you
that is
haven't
how
quite yet.
I'm there.
Sometimes I just want to get the window of tolerance bigger, because we want you to be there
Yeah.
even when it's
Yeah. I think I'm less so
like
for
in
my
that
kids.
30%. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then with the kids too.
Well, right. Because I feel like I'm trying to save them from being what I am a little bit. Right.
Mm.
You know, and I recognize
So
that, like, don't do this. This is how I do it. And here's where we are. But like, okay, your life will be so much easier if you're just consistent. I don't, yeah.
does it bleed
I
into other things too? The consistency thing? You've said it a couple of times. You feel like you're not consistent. Is it just,
yeah.
tell me more about that. I want to understand more what you mean.
Mm, yeah. No, I definitely think that I'm prone to jumping wholeheartedly into something and going all in and letting all the other things kind of go to the side for a while.
Okay.
I really do like that about myself. Like I've come to like that about myself.
Okay.
And I think what I worry about when I see my kids just sitting around doing nothing, like when it's chore time, is like probably it goes to like this sort of long term, this long down the road thought of like, you kind of go to the worst case scenario, but like, how can they've got to learn to do the things that are hard even when they don't want to. And I think that actually, as I say that, that's
Okay.
what's resonating for me is
Okay.
like when something gets really hard or tricky, I'm quick to like, let me go back over to this big project that I'm excited about and not do the things that I don't want to do.
Okay.
And I'm worried that even as I came to love and appreciate that about myself, like, okay, yeah, I let go of things when I don't feel like they're serving me or my family. There's a great aspect to that.
Beautiful aspect.
The flip side can be that, yeah, sometimes then there's a big thing that you have to face and you actually do, like, there's no way out but through. And I don't have the grit. I don't have that strength of like that muscle necessarily as much as I would like to. Do I do it sometimes? Yes. Do I avoid it sometimes? Yes. And I think that is where the root of this is I'm worried that I'm not passing on grit to
Okay.
my children. That's what it is.
Okay. So
Yeah.
good to just keep digging, right? Until we find
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
What evidence does your brain use to support that story that you're not passing on grit?
Yeah. Just that anytime there's something unpleasant, they disappear. To do anything, there's a job to do.
And the
They
conclusion is
disappear.
that they don't have grit.
Yeah, totally. That is totally, that
What if
is
they're
it.
just normal humans?
Yeah, avoiding and
Discomfort, pushing
discomfort, which
hard,
is
all
what
the
I'm doing.
effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it like for me, I think at some point you have to do it. Like I remember having my fourth child and there was no epidural available and I
Do it.
lost it. I was like, no, I give up. Time out. Like I tap out. I
I can't
change
have
my
a baby
mind.
right now.
I don't
This
want to do
can't
it.
happen.
I literally, if there was any conceivable way, I would have handed it off. And I thought like later it was so funny, but it's also part of my personality a little bit. Like, something that I noticed, and I don't think I have a ton of shame about it, but just like, yeah, when I'm done, I know my limits. I'm tapping out. Like I'm out. See ya. And so I had to, though. There was no way but through. And I feel like that was a powerful experience.
Yeah.
Like I had to do it. And I guess I almost want to just like, and it's super interesting, like save my kids from that or like fix that. And like, no, there are things that you just have to do. And they'll be like, no, why? Like they can tap, there's so many ways for them to tap out. And I feel like that tapping out and me not helping them stay the course is doing them a disservice for when things are going to be really tough. That's my thinking.
Yeah. How do you think right now you are preventing them from learning to have grit or to tap out? Because there's some story you have that this is what I'm perpetuating right now. Does it look
it's
like
the chores? It's the chore thing.
Okay,
It's a situation where they're not doing it. And one more added layer is like, yeah, I don't want to do consequences or rewards because I really do want to privilege the relationship. But in privileging the relationship, and here's the question, in privileging it, am I somehow compromising their character.
Not if you do it when you marry it with firmness and holding limits. But yes, sometimes we can. And that's where a lot of people get worried about connect method parenting is they think, well, I'm going to have to be passive.
Yeah. Which I know is not true,
Not
but then what do you
not the
do
true,
at
but
that?
it's really mind bending.
Yes.
And part of it is cleaning your story up so that you're not worried about you not teaching them grit. Because if you're coming with that anxiousness of, oh my gosh, I have to make sure they do their chores today, because if I don't, they're not going to learn to have grit. If that's the story, then it's going to feel control-y. Even if you're trying to be connective, they're going to feel mom has an agenda here and she's anxious and worried versus mom's calm and connected and confident and is holding a firm limit. I just had a daughter just now, right before this morning, before I started today. And I was telling, we were reviewing everything. And I said, you need the bathroom. She's like, I just did it. And I said, it needs to be done again. So that pushback of, but mom, I literally did it 2 days ago. And that's a normal interaction we have, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's not even a problem. It's just, I don't have to feel like that means she doesn't have grit and she doesn't know how to push through, right? My story around it, what is that story around it, around the boundary pushing, or even around my belief of the lessons she's learning and the qualities she's forming. So getting clean on that pushback so that you can hold the limit with connectedness and not, this frantic graspy.
Right. And I do think that I'm getting there. Like, I do think I'm not super graspy about it. But then the problem is, so imagine you come out of this call and you go to check the bathroom and you realize your daughter did not do it.
Yeah. I mean, that happens.
And then you ask her, then you ask her about it and she's like, no. And then she still doesn't do it. Then what?
I know. It feels like our brains don't think we have any way to back it up.
Yeah. Like,
right.
Okay. Now where? Yeah. Now where do we go from here? Like, does that mean, is that where like you lean in and here? Yeah. I mean, I could see, I could lean in and be like, obviously this kid needs some more attention. Let's talk about their Legos that they're building. But I feel like I've done a lot of that. And it almost was like them not doing the job sort of then pulls me in for more connection.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of fueling the off track behavior by giving it more attention.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes if we think, okay, I need to connect so that they do the chore, that's
okay. Fair enough.
Because now we're just I'll go play with Legos and then I'll leverage that.
Oh yeah. I have been thinking about that a lot lately. Okay. So that's good to know. I'll be aware of that.
We want to have connection and I could offer it. And you could say, okay, they're struggling to focus right now. I am going to go play Legos with them, but I'm going to keep it clean and I'm going to have myself engage with the Legos because I want to calm their nervous system down and help them feel connected, but not to use as a control mechanism again, because we can use connection in a way that's the same as a concept, same as a
like a pre-reward,
like it's like a reward. And that is enabling. So if I went downstairs and my daughter decided to turn on the TV and watch something instead of clean the bathroom, which would not be the way it was to happen in the order of things, it would just be about, and this is multi-layered. So this is isolated to this event, but there's other facets that are contributing to this working. But specifically for this, it would be about me inspecting myself first. If I walked into the bathroom and the mirror was still messy, I realized it hasn't been done. Asking myself, okay, what's coming up for me right now as I see that this has clearly been ignored? I always want to go to myself first, because if I'm triggered when I go have this set the limit with her, or hold the limit is how I would say it. So I'm going to hold the limit and I want to do that. But if I go in and I'm frustrated, I'm like, are you kidding? Or if I beat myself up, oh my gosh, I must be failing. Or another version of the story could be, my child's really lazy. How come she's lazy? We have versions of those stories that come up. I want to deal with that first and ask myself, okay, why am I feeling that way? How is that showing up? I always love to give myself the benefit of that. Of course, I'm feeling triggered. Of course, I'm feeling frustrated or whatever, just so I can understand my own nervous system and get my parasympathetic back engaged, because that's going to create the best chance for me to be able to hold the limit. Then I want to go into her, wherever she is, if she's in the room watching TV, and I want to see her. And we talk about this in module 3, which you probably haven't gotten to yet, but it's okay. You'll eventually get there, but we'll give you a little sneak peek. So seeing is about looking at them in the eyes and just taking a moment to connect. When someone's having, whether it's an adult in a work relationship, us with our spouse or a child, establishing a working relationship is really, really important, So I want to see, are they responding to me? So when I look at them in the eyes, I want to see, are they looking back? We'll go through the whole scenario. Let's say she's decided to watch Gilmore Girls. I sit down with her and I say, can we turn that off for a second? I've cleaned my thoughts up, which we can go more into that if we need to, but that's the prerequisite. I've cleaned myself up. I'm in there. We turn off the show so she can actually pay attention. Now, if I go in there and I try to talk to her when the TV's on and she's not even acknowledging me, then that's telling me something, because behavior is information. So I'll be like, okay, she is avoiding me. She's not willing to acknowledge me.
Yes.
All
Then
right.
what?
That's telling me that that's what I've got to address first. Because sometimes what we'll do as parents is push through, we bulldoze through, and we're like, no, you don't listen. Like, listen to me right now. And they're not ready to listen to us. And maybe it's she feels guilty because she absolutely knows she's done something wrong, whatever it is. So I'm going to work on the first step, which is establishing that working relationship, which the prerequisites or the qualifiers to create that is, or the way I know that's happening, better way to say it, is I'm looking at her eyes and she's looking at me back. So we have eye contact. If I say something, she's acknowledging with some body language. She's nodding her head. She's shrugging her shoulders. She's doing something. And then if I can say something funny or something that will lighten the mood a little bit, will she smile at me, or is she going to just snarl at me or scowl at me? So if I can't meet those criteria of creating a working relationship, that's what I need to work on first. Because if I try to push through at that point, I'm going to have to resort to consequences and rewards. I'm going to have to go heavy-handed. I'm going to start violating the trust and the relationship. But it doesn't mean I give up and I'm like, well, I guess I can't do anything today. I'll just go clean the mirror myself. It's more of, okay, my work today is to keep myself in a good place and try to get a working relationship with her. And it could be, hey, we need to turn off the TV because the bathroom didn't get cleaned. And the agreement we had was before you could watch your show, you have to clean the bathroom. So we're just going to turn the TV off for a little bit. Sometimes I can tell both of us probably could use a little bit of time before we're ready to actually be productive in the conversation. So I might just say something like, we're going to take 10 minutes or 30 minutes. And I want to have a conversation about why the bathroom didn't get done, so that I can just understand what happened for you and be honest with what's going on for me. And I want you to be honest with what was your decision-making process that got you on the couch instead of cleaning the bathroom. She might even start saying something and it's probably going to be snappy or defensive. And I'll be like, no, let's just wait, because I think we're both a little bit triggered right now. Then I'll reassure her, I'm not frustrated with you. We're on the same team. We're going to figure this out, but let's just talk in whatever the time period is. And then that will give me a chance too to go say, okay, am I really clean? What am I making it mean? Maybe new stuff has come up because we've been sitting on the couch and maybe some of her body language has re-triggered me. And maybe I'm feeling nervous again, that she's just really entitled and she's going around the rules, or she's really lazy. So I want to go take a minute if I have the time. And if you don't have the time right then, I would say, let's just circle back when you do have the time. There's no rush. It feels like there's a rush to get this done, but there doesn't have to be a rush. And you can even say, we're going to take a break. And these are the things that you can do while we're taking a break. If you want to make sure she doesn't watch Zelda, whatever those criteria are, so that you're clean and she's not just.
So what if she does get like combatant and just like keeps the TV on, like, nope, not turning it off?
Yeah, that's when you would set that firm limit too, of just say, no, the TV's got to go off. I don't recommend getting into anything physical, but hopefully that's possible for you to just take the remote and just turn it off. And if you can stay calm and really compassionate, I understand this is really frustrating for you. And I totally get that you don't understand why we would need to clean the bathroom today. I get that. And I really want to talk to you about it, but we have to turn the TV off right now, because that's the rule of our house, is we don't get to turn the TV on until we're done with our chores. The firm limit is fueled by our confidence in our decision that we really feel good about this rule we've created, but it's also not a problem that they're breaking it, but we're not just going to let them break it, if that makes sense. So if we were a sports team, coach, we would keep telling the kids, these are the rules, and they might keep breaking the rules because they don't know them. We just keep saying, oh, those are the rules. And we just hold it. It feels like it should be fueled by a threat or a consequence, but it doesn't need to be effective. And if you can do it that way, she's like, oh, mom's not backing down. She's really firm on this, not coming at it with frustration or agitation or
Yeah.
threatening to take away something else.
Okay. So what if the boundary isn't being broken? Let's say
Okay.
you do
Yeah.
your jobs, chores in the morning, you get electronics in the afternoon. They just opt out. Like, well, I'm just not going to do electronics today.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of self-entertain.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of stuck with the job, and we have a kind of a rotating system. And I do have my oldest is a little bit, he's kind of building his resentment about this in that he will do his, and he's often behind a sibling who didn't do it the day before. Like it just didn't get done because I didn't force it. And there was no boundary that was big enough that they did it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So just to make sure I understand, they had to clean the living room. They didn't clean the living room, so they didn't get electronics. They didn't really care that they didn't get electronics because they'd rather not get electronics than clean the living room.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the next day, the son who has been doing his chores every day is kind of punished because he then has to clean up whatever didn't get. And this is recurring, like pretty much every day.
Pretty much every day. Is it the same kids every day that are doing it? Yeah. Okay. Here's one thing I'd have you try. If the limit is we do our chores every day.
Yeah.
That's the limit.
Okay.
They get electronics in the afternoon and they might only earn them if they've done their chores. But what I'd love you to do is to step in and say, how can I help this child be successful at doing their chores? If this is your standard, everyone gets to do their own standard. But if your standard is everyone needs to do their chores every day, I would just do an experiment, a short experiment. Is it she 10, the one that consistently has?
There's one that's 10 and one that's 12 that consistently don't do them. Maybe 2 days out of a week, they'll get them done, but that's because they were something really big that they were excited about. Again, they're kind of motivated by an external.
By this external thing. Yeah. I'm going to throw out an idea, but feel free to reject it. Is there something that you could do to collaborate with them to make it easier for them to do their chore? And I'm not saying you take the weight of the responsibility off of them, but they're clearly showing you that they're not capable of doing it independently every day.
Yeah.
So as a temporary training program, and to maybe help their brains not be so, I don't know if this is the case, but maybe not so overwhelmed or feeling so burdened by them. For some kids, they're perfectionistic or they feel things really strongly. So cleaning this, it's overwhelming. Can you think of something you could instigate with them that would make it more likely that they would get into the habit of doing it? And it might look like you setting aside time to say, okay, and I wouldn't let them know this is what's happening. How many do you have? 4? Is that right? Or 3? You have 5. So how many are doing chores?
The older 3.
Okay.
The older 3. And then the younger 2 have been, but then I'll get this pushback from the 10 and 12-year-olds who are like, well, why doesn't the 7-year-old have to do but every pushback, but then at the end of the day, ultimately it just doesn't happen.
Didn't get done.
Yeah. It just doesn't happen.
So I would start by having a conversation with them and just say, okay, these are the non-negotiables. We eat every day. We clean every day, whatever these are. We read every day. There's these non-negotiables. Yeah. How can I help make it easier for you to do them? I would even maybe talk about all of the non-negotiables. I really want them to feel like, okay, I'm coming in to collaborate with you, but I'm not coming here to like do your chores for you. And I'm not doing it because you're a problem. So it might look like you reaching everybody on all the chores and you saying something like, I am going to work with everybody for the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes, or telling them you're doing trainings where I'm going to work with one child one day, one child the next day, however you want to do it. If you're really only training with 3, that's probably a lot more doable. If you could even do it every day, 10 minutes with you, 10 minutes with, because I'm guessing their chores are probably realistically a 10 to 15 minute chore, right? They're not really that long.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got a zone and it's like you put toys away, vacuum it, blah, blah. It can be, 20 minutes, really.
20 minutes. Could you commit to doing 20 minutes with each of them every day?
Yeah, I think I could.
And just do it for a week and reevaluate and get them used to this isn't that big of a deal. Chores actually happen really fast.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate the pragmatics of that, like just a retraining. Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Andy. I will give that. Yeah,
give that a try.
Yeah.
And then your mindset heading in the right direction. It's just wrapping your brain around how do I enforce something without it being fueled by this external thing.
Yeah. So I like that idea of training and collaboration. Like, I feel like that could be the next, I feel like I've dabbled in that. Like my older son who is getting his stuff done, he'll say, hey mom, would you help me with the dishes while I do the kitchen? Absolutely. Like I'm all in because it's a working relationship. Whereas the other 2, it'll be like, okay, let's do this. But then they take advantage on like my distractedness. Like I'm out and then they T-bone it out. Like The word or T-bone's probably not the
Yeah.
word, but yeah,
I know what you meant.
Yeah, it feeds off of itself. So my distractedness feeds off of theirs. And then at the end of the day, we have nothing to show except for the one kid who did do his job, poor kid. But yeah, so it's a retraining for me as well as a retraining
for you. Yeah. So retraining, and then the other way to do it, and then I got to jump off. So sorry. But the other way to do it would be you get me for 20 minutes a day to help you. We're collaborating on the chore. So I start the timer. I'm here for 20 minutes. We work together and you get to give me instructions.
Yes. I love that idea. I love the subversion of the parent-child thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I would start with those two things. You are so welcome.
Thanks,
so good
Sandy.
to chat. You are welcome. We'll see you.
Thanks. See ya. Bye.
Bye. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things that came up in this conversation with Jessica, which I think was so useful to be able to talk about what we do when we have clear rules, we have things we want to accomplish, but our brain is trying to understand this concept that for a lot of us is really new. It was very unfamiliar and very new and confusing for me when I first started stepping into this way of being with our kids where we can set a limit without having a consequence to back it up. Where I want to direct everybody is to first understand that before we can even move into the kind of conversation I had with Jessica, understanding our brains, understanding our minds and the thoughts we're having around the kids not doing a chore is critical. Because if we haven't moved from the baseline that a lot of us enter connect method parenting from, which is that corrective mindset, into a neutral acceptance, which is what I've labeled as stage 1 as we're making this transition. If we're still resistant, if we're still feeling a lot of frustration around it, or we're stuck in frustration, then I would suggest for everyone to start there. Jessica had done a lot of work on her mindset around this. Although I will say for all of us, me included, there's always more cleanup work I can do, like cleaning our house. We can always find another closet to organize or another baseboard to wipe down. So that work is continual. However, there has to be a baseline level of work that's been done so that we can continue on, so to speak, to this holding the limit with what I call stage 2, which is resilient connection. And getting to that second stage of resilient connection so that we can hold the limit and have it be fueled by connection and compassion, but also firmness and confidence, requires neutral acceptance, and then entering into stage 2 with resilient connection, where I can stay connected and confident and calm no matter what the kids are doing. So those would be the 2 stages that we're dabbling in here, and entering into stage 3, which is this honest collaboration that I was talking about with her at the end, focusing on understanding our own behavior so we can leave room for the kids' behavior, would be the initial phase. And that work of understanding our own behavior begins with the CMP power tools. But once we've done that, then stepping into getting really curious about the rules we have. I didn't dive into this with Jessica. We didn't have time, but this is something I would suggest with everyone. Get clear about your family rules and curious about why you have those family rules. We're also talking about routines and traditions, all of these things that are working towards your family routine, culture, the essentials that you have in your home, so that you can get them all cleaned up and get your house running smoothly. So I'd highly recommend getting into the habit of doing daily peace and then getting clear on what are the rules? Why do I have them? What am I going to do when they don't follow through? Because the kids will push back. It's not when, it's if. So getting clear on that, which is a lot of what this conversation was framed around, was what do I do when they don't listen? And what does that actually look like to support the limit, to hold the limit from a place of connection, not correction? So doing this work is really powerful. And you heard us in this conversation talking about what that looks like, establishing the working relationship before we do anything else. So I would start with that. I think this was a beautiful conversation. I'm really grateful for the time that we got to talk about it. And I'm excited to continue the conversation about rules and how we replace consequences with connective limits with you all in further conversations I have with you. Thank you, Jessica, for opening up and talking with me about this today. I know it's going to be so helpful for so many parents who are navigating this same apparent conundrum as they implement Connect Method parenting. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.